Welcome to the Manders Mindset Podcast. Here you'll find both monologue and interviews of entrepreneurs, coaches, healers, and a variety of other people, where your host Amanda Russo will discuss her own mindset and perspective and her guest's mindset and perspective on the world around us. Manders and her guests will help explain to you how shifting your mindset will shift your life.
Hey everyone, welcome to Manders Mindset. I'm your host, Amanda Russo, and I am so excited for you guys to hear this episode today. I had the honor of sitting down with Craig Sotkovsky, also known as the Shaman from Jersey. And Craig and I had such an amazing conversation. He is a really down-to-earth man, and we had a lot of laughs, and he's also super real, raw, authentic, and I'm sure y'all are going to love this episode. Stay tuned for a special giveaway because we are giving away 2 signed copies of Craig's book, Everybody Pays a Vig. All you have to do is share this episode on any social media account and email me a screenshot of it. More details at the end of the episode. Craig is a 9/11 volunteer responder, a lung cancer survivor, a professional international speaker, a real estate investor, entrepreneur, and the author of one of my favorite books. Craig is also the founder of the Conscious Entrepreneur Mastery, where he coaches his clients through transformational change using human behavior strategies. Craig has faced a lot of different pain and adversity in his life, but he has turned that pain into victory. Craig is someone who previously was comfortable being the victim in his life, but he has shifted his mindset. And today, we're going to hear more about Craig's story and how he shifted his mindset. Hi, Craig.
Hi, Amanda.
Thank you for being here. No, I really appreciate it. And Craig wrote a book called Everybody Pays a Vig, and I absolutely loved his book. Honestly, I laughed out loud at times. I had chills at times with how moving some of what he said was. And I read his book super quickly too. So Craig, can you tell us a little bit about your backstory?
So my backstory is I've been an entrepreneur my whole life, ever since I was a little kid. I was always the kid with the lemonade stand or the haunted house kind of thing, or, selling candy. And when I was a young kid, I had an incident happen to me that little kids shouldn't have to go through. And as time went on, I ended up becoming addicted to prescription meds and other substances. And that went into my teens and mid-20s, and I ended up becoming bankrupt, homeless, all the things that would go along with not having the right mindset, I guess. And as time went on, I was a 9/11 responder volunteer to the World Trade Center. And I was only there for 2 days. And what I had found out over the course of time, people were telling me for years that I should go to these lawyers and seek out all this information about, things that could happen to you. And I just blew it off because I was only there for 2 days. And what happened was in 2012, I started getting sick. I had pneumonia in a collapsed bottom lobe of my lung. And for 5 years, I was sick on and off. In 2016, I was sick for the whole year. 2017, I was diagnosed with a carcinoid tumor between my mid and upper part of my lobe, my right lung. At that time, I had two a rigid and flexible bronchoscopy. And during one of those procedures, I can't remember which one, but they actually nicked the carcinoid tumor, and that sent me to the hospital for 5-7 days, and it almost killed me. And long story short is they ended up taking my mid and lower lung out my mid and lower lobe, my right lung, in a 9-hour surgery. And I was one of those people that at the end of that 9 hours woke up screaming. And my brother and my wife were there. And I was just glad my daughter was sleeping because it ended up, I was just one of those people, man, where my blood pressure bottomed out. I mean, it was a 9-hour surgery. What happened was I ended up getting what they call Saturday night palsy. And I couldn't move my left arm because it was strapped, upwards for like 9 hours. Or I should say strapped forward on a gurney, not upwards, right? And, I'm here. I'm here, and I greatly appreciate the opportunity. But I'm here to tell people, like, I'm one of tens of thousands who are sick and dying from this event, and nobody really cares, And it's come into my life to be like this person to bring you some information. And my information that I want to bring to people is you don't have time. Whatever it is that you're thinking about, mapping out, or planning, you have to execute on it. You have to take action. You have to move from this point forward. And the reason why I say that to people is because whatever bullshit you have in your head of why you cannot accomplish something is just that. It's bullshit. Whether we have all these external people, places, and things that hold us back, it's really about ourselves holding us back because we haven't conquered those outward forces. So what I encourage people to do is to actually walk away from the people, places, and things that no longer serve you and tap into the quantum field. And that's what I want to talk about today.
Okay. So how have you been able to walk away from people, places, and things that don't serve you?
So what I've done, I've spent tens of thousands of hours in my own head while I was battling, I would say, 6 years of pain, like consistent pain. When I performed the surgery, I lost feeling in my right side going back all the way down and all the way around to my spine. And when I say I lost feeling, it was nerve damage. So I believe nerve damage is the worst pain you could possibly endure because it's not something you can get over quickly. You when they cut nerves, they believe that nerves would never grow back, and that's not true. Because once you put yourself in a position like I did of spending thousands and thousands and thousands of hours in this self-imposed misery and isolation and self-sabotage and self-loathing of why I couldn't move past all of this pain, I discovered something called epigenetics. I discovered something through neuroscience that really made me change the way I think. I think I want to say 85 to 90% of medicinal drugs and big pharma is based off of placebo effect. So I started to understand placebo effect and what it actually is. And if you can sit in your pain, and this is not a very enticing thing for most people, is to sit in their pain. And it doesn't matter what kind of pain it is, because the pain that we're sitting in is stories, and it's based off of the emotional attachment that we have to stories, physical or mental. And this is something that I get a lot of shit for, because they're like, well, Craig, you don't know my story. And I don't need to know your story. Your story is the same as everybody else. We all have stories. And I don't mean to be callous about what I talk about. It could be rape. It could be murder. It could be all of these. It could be disease. It could be all of these things that we're mentally attached to. And that's the emotional attachment is what we have to move away from. And that is what I'm really good at. That's my passion, is to help people move past themselves and discover who they are, not what society says that they are, or what mommy and daddy, are telling you what to do, or your siblings, because they want to protect you because they love you in whatever way that they love you, but they're also stopping you. So how I have been able to develop how I feel mentally is through all the pain, misery, self-loathing, suffering that we all self-impose on ourselves. So I encourage people to, actually take the step and sit in their pain and understand it. This is a temple for a reason. This is the only real estate that we can own, is our mindset. So if you have things that are living in here and talking all kinds of bullshit stories to you, you need to evict them, and you need to evict them now.
I love that. It's true. The only real estate you can own is your mindset. But I love how you mentioned the word stories as well, because a lot of people have talked to me on the podcast about how Everything in life is a story. Whether you speak it out loud to other people or it's a story you internally say to yourself, every experience, every feeling, it's all a story. And what are you attaching to that story?
That's exactly it. Usually nonsense. We usually attach nonsense to the story. No, I'm being serious, because something could have happened 20 years ago that's been holding you back. And your mind works in an entirely different way than we believe it does, right? It's like 95% of our everyday life is run off of past experiences and past downloads from when we were like 0 to 8 years old, and our mindset does not know, so when we get into the reticular activating system, right? I'll give you an example. You pick out a car and you pick out the car's color, right? And all your reticular activating system wants to do is please you, right? So if you pick, to your audience, think about the car, think about the color, and you'll see that shit everywhere now, because your RAS just wants to help you. It wants to please you. Well, that's the same thing with shitty thoughts, because it doesn't distinguish between good or bad thoughts. It's just thoughts. So whatever thoughts that you have, your RAS just wants to please you. So if you're having shitty thoughts about your job, you're having shitty thoughts about your spouse, you're having shitty thoughts about all of these things that are in your life, guess what's going to happen? More shitty experience. So this is the quantum field that you're in, is shitty. So we have this Wi-Fi that we need to tap into for the good. And this is one of the things that I help people with. And the reason why I encourage people, before you even get into business, before you even go to school as an adult, is to get rid of those thinking stories you have about yourself of why you can't achieve things. And I've become a master for myself. And that's where I got the Shaman from Jersey. It's alchemizing my world, right? Everybody can be a shaman for themselves. And people are like, oh, that's a bold statement. Well, you know what? It is a bold statement. I used to be very cocky. Now I'm no longer cocky. I've been humbled. I've been brought down on my knees so many times. And I've realized through psychedelics and mindset development, personal development, that I am somebody not to be fucked with for myself. And I encourage people to do that for themselves, because after all, I can only bring you information. I can't teach you anything, because it's your experience and it's your mindset that's going to either receive the information and process it and execute on it, or just take the information, think about it, and move on. And I encourage people to do that. You have to find things, it's always trust but verify. And when you start to verify the things that you trust, you start to alchemize a different life, because now you're doing the work. And that's what I encourage people to do, because right now in 2024, nobody wants to work. Everybody wants to become, this instantaneous success in their head. It requires work. It requires dark work. It requires shadow work. It requires the things that you don't want to fucking do for yourself is what you need to do now. So I encourage people to do that. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. There's a lot there, and there's a lot I want to delve into, but I want to backtrack real quick. You talked about the placebo effect and how you discovered that. What does that mean?
So there are drugs and there are sugar pills where they in the medical industry have shown that, like, if I can give you, Amanda, a sugar pill because you have XYZ disease or you have these ailments, and I give you the sugar pill, your mind is like, this is the cure. So your mind actually goes and works on helping you, right? But it's a sugar pill. And this is throughout science. And what I have found for myself, right? Like, I still take some things, I still believe in psychedelics. I still believe in certain medications that will help me instead of hinder. However, that being said, I can be a hypocrite sometimes when it comes to mindset, because I have been beaten down so much to where I had to be turned on mentally to relieve pain without prescriptions. And I was doing that for years. And what I was doing was beating myself down so much because I was always on walking meditation, standing meditation, talking meditation. I got into it so much to where it was thousands and thousands and thousands of hours, to where I burnt myself out so much because it was 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Like I said, I had this pain for 6 years and I was pushing it off mentally. And I just got burnt out, tired. And then in 2020, I had 8 to 12 surgeries and procedures where it was like every time I was ready to get, something sliced or stitched, I had to start physically and mentally preparing myself to heal before I even had a surgery or procedure. And I started to notice that my healing was brought on faster. But I was still in that state of after surgery, after the anesthesia, after, and it wears you down. It seemed like every month I was under some kind of anesthesia, where today I have lost a few years mentally. Well, I'll think about something and be like, well, that was a month and a half ago. And my daughter will be like, nah, Dad, that was 2 years ago. It's like, oh, shit. So I started developing more and more clarity after in 2021. Previously, I had 8 knee surgeries. And in 2021, they gave me a knee ablation where they fried the nerves. That gave me 3 blood clots that almost killed me. And it brought on more pain medicine, which brought on more mental instability, which brought on more mental strength. And it was a continuing thing. Now I'm a force to be reckoned with for myself because I do understand if you're going through surgeries, take the pills and move on. Once they're done, because your body needs to heal in a certain way once you're cut, once you're stitched, right? That's what I believe in. Now, it's just been my experience. Now, I like to go through life. I take a lot of THC. I take a lot of psychedelics. I believe that once you go through all of this physical, emotional embarrassment, I've been bankrupt, broke, like all of this. We've had to sell everything, a bunch of times. And you develop this power for yourself where you can take on anything. I don't want to know what's worse. I've seen really shitty situations that I do not even want to know what's worse. But I'm not afraid of anything. I'm not afraid to die. I'm not afraid to confront. I go through life every day scared, but I do it anyway. I've been told that they were going to treat me for cancer 3 times. They will only write once, but I have the scars for all 3 times. I have scars all over my torso, and here I am trying to express to people, or I'm attempting to express to people, take your life fucking serious. We got one shot at this. This is a one-take experience. So learn from your mistakes. I'm learning from mine every day. I'm in the middle of getting a divorce, which I never thought would happen. I'm in the middle of, writing another book. I'm in the middle of writing more screenplays. I'm in the middle of writing another cartoon. And life is going to come at you anyway. You might as well participate, right? You might as well actually step up for yourself. And I sit here and I do it with a smile on my face. I've been in the rooms where they're like, hey, if you didn't come here in the ER, you'd be dead by the morning. My wife and daughter have heard that numerous times. And, my wife used to walk by me and still check to see if I was breathing, as well as my daughter. And this is stuff that I just feel really bad about because I don't want to put my wife or daughter through any of that shit ever again. And as we grow as people, we just want different things now. We've been together 25 years, and I encourage people always to reevaluate your life. And if you're with somebody that you don't want to be with and you want to participate in something else, move on, man. That's what it's about. It's not time heals all wounds. It's time shows you how to just deal with the pain in a different way. So I encourage people, sit in that pain, man, sit in that thought. And encourage people to just, when you're moving on, wish people well. Send somebody out with love, empathy. It's what my life is all about right now.
I've never heard it phrased like that. Instead of time heals all wounds, time shows you how to deal with it.
Have to. There's always thoughts like, I still react, right?
Yeah.
But I don't react for a day, a week, a month, a year. I react in a couple minutes and then change that shit and we're all gonna have that. Oh, I can't believe this is happening to me. What about? Why not? It's happening for you, so you can learn and grow and move.
Did something help you be able to everything, or was it a specific thing?
I've had a lot of epiphanies as I've been going through this journey since probably 2012, and the epiphanies that I've been having more and more is, and I don't mean to be egotistical in this and saying this, is I've discovered the badass within myself, to understand what it is I can take. I can take anything thrown at me. I can take, all the people being deceitful. Because we all have deceitful people in our lives. We all have people that betray us. None of that shit has anything to do with you. You can't take it personal. You really can't. As much as we're like, oh, I can't believe so-and-so did that to me. You know what? Maybe that was one of the best things that could ever happen to you if you look at it in hindsight. Right?
I love that.
So you have to develop this badass for yourself. You have to be present. You're the gift. Remember that. Open your shit up. Open it. Examine it. Go through all the dark crap that you have. Nobody knows you better than you. And people are afraid to look in the mirror. That's one of the biggest things people are afraid to do, is look in the mirror and confront themselves. Right? So I had this wild experience when I was living in Mexico. And I was doing a lot of psychedelics. I was doing a lot of DMT and ayahuasca, right? And can I talk about this here? Or?
Yes. I've told you before that I've done ayahuasca.
That's why I was just saying that. I figured I'd get a chuckle. So I was doing. So I wasn't. I'm what people call a psychonaut.
A psychonaut?
I like a psychonaut. Yeah.
I don't know what that is.
So instead of just doing DMT, I have to drink ayahuasca first, maybe 45 minutes before, and then do DMT. So then when you blast off the DMT experience, which leaves your mind completely like, what in the fuck was that? Like a Scooby-Doo experience. As you're doing that and shaking that off, you've just walked into a different reality to push you further. And one of these times I was looking in the mirror and I was talking to an old man. And that old man was me. And it was wild because the old man in the mirror was telling me about what is going to happen and these experiences in my life and why I'm here and all this stuff. And I would say it was probably a couple years ago that I was doing something on a computer and I dropped the pen and I picked it up. And when I came back up, I looked in the computer and in that screen, I saw that guy that I was talking to. And I was like, now it's time. Now it's time to execute. And as I was doing this, I still had more problems coming. I still had more obstacles. So I was trying to figure it all out. And I realized you can't figure it out. We're part of nature. Everything is chaos, right? The only thing that we can figure out is ourselves. We can't figure out anything that life is going to throw at us because life is going to kick our ass. Life's going to be hard. Life punches hard, man. And it'll continue to punch you down, if you allow it. When you think about the things that are troubling in your life, are they really troubling? Seriously. Are they troubling, or are you just troubled by it? Are you troubled by an emotional attachment you have to shit that's coming at you? And this is something I encourage people to do, is actually take the time and look at your life. Look at it, observe it, be the observer. Instead of just listen to speak, listen and learn. I have people that are around me that fucking tell me about my shit all the time. And I encourage people to be around those people. You don't want to be the smartest person in a room. You got to be in a different room. And this is something that I encourage people. People are like, oh, you're so smart and you have wisdom. No, I used to be a fuck up every day. How do you learn? You learn by getting your ass beat. I have people like best peak performance coaches in the planet tell me that. The shit that I'm doing wrong and how I should be looking at certain things. Not the way they look at it, how I should change my mindset about thinking. And this is a continuing education thing. You can meet people and you want to help them, but you can only meet them at their level of understanding, at their level of experience, And I can tell you, man, this mindset game, this is it. Most people are playing checkers when game of life is chess. And you have to know what the board is.
I don't understand that analogy. Most people are playing checkers when the game of life is chess.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you want to explain what that means in case anybody else doesn't understand? Because that went over my head.
So, like, checkers is a simple game, right? It's like you're going to hop over this person, you're going to hop over that person.
Okay.
Right? That's life. You're going to hop over these people.
Okay.
My daughter calls them not NPCs, non-playable characters, right? From the
Okay.
right? So non-playable characters are playing checkers. Real people that want to understand life and move with strategy, right? And understand human behavior. That's chess. That's a game of the kings. That's how you move around a board. And you're with pawns, right? Because there's pawns that move around. And you also got your warriors. And those are the ones you have to stick to and be around. I don't want to look around. I don't want to turn around and look and be like, fuck, that person's behind my back. I know I'm getting knives thrown at me. I want to be able to now look behind my back and be like, oh, so-and-so is there. I don't even have to look back there because I know my ass is covered. And these are the people that you want in your life. And these are the people that are going to come with brutal honesty and truth. And that's what I encourage people to be around. People that are going to actually help you ascend and not hold you back. I want people in my life to learn and grow for themselves. I encourage people and I applaud people that are becoming successful. Yeah, absolutely. Put the work in, man. Go get it. And you'll see the people, you'll see the people in your life that have put the work in, or the people that just got it given to them. And there's different mindsets when it comes to that. Because there's people like, oh, I'm self-made. It's like, nah, you ain't self-made. Nobody's self-made when it comes down to life. You have experiences and stories that help you become self-made, right? Because you're creating yourself. You're developing yourself. Most people want to be somebody else. They want to copy other shit. No, be original, man. Get into your freak. Understand you're fucking who you are. Who the badass is. You are. Beat out 400 million sperm cells, become uniquely you. Don't waste the fucking experience, man. And I did that for so long. You have to apply. We have to apply ourselves. Most of us we're here to live, pay bills, and raise a family and fucking die. What is that? That's what we're taught.
I know. I agree.
So where do we go from here then? It's like, if you're around people that are just working to like hang out and party for the weekend, you need different fucking people. I want to work on the weekend and be around during the week when nobody's out. When places are empty. I don't need to be around crowds, man. That energy, all of them fucking people, that fucks up my Wi-Fi. It does. And I always wanted to be the loudest in the room. I wanted to walk in and people be like, oh, we know him. Nah, man. I want to, they say it's lonely at the top because you got to the top. I don't want to be lonely. I want to extend my hand and bring people up. Used to be like, oh, I'm at the top. Look at me. No, I want to look who's coming up the mountain, man. I want to know whether or not I should just kick them down. Just kick them and watch them tumble. Sometimes we have to walk over the bodies, and those bodies are ourselves. It's the mental challenges that we have all the time. Like that one. You weren't expecting me kicking somebody down the hill, were you?
No, you were on this motivational, inspiring topic.
But you didn't hear what I said.
Yes, I did hear you, but it's yourself. I did hear you.
Exactly. And that's what we do to ourselves. If you're going to look down on somebody, you better bring your arms down and give them a hand up. And that's what I encourage people to do, because they say it is lonely at the top, and the reason why is because the people that you're with, right? They'll cheer for you, they'll applaud your efforts and stuff, but they don't want you to rise more than them, because we've all started at the same spot, right? So if you're ascending faster, maybe you're putting the work in. Maybe you're putting that dark work in. Maybe you're putting the time and energy into yourself. I've been blessed and I'm so grateful for my life. Even when shit just turns around and beats the hell out of me, I'm like, hey, you know what? At least I could fight. I'm not dead.
So I want to backtrack a little bit. You were talking about psychedelics and how you had a lot of epiphanies with them. When did you first experience psychedelics?
It's probably like 16.
What was
Mescaline.
and how was that experience?
We used to take mescaline and meet up in like chemistry, me and a couple of my friends. We had a very wild high school, man. I went to Cliffside Park High School in New Jersey, and at the time in the '80s, it was a very unique experience. Like I always knew I wasn't going to college. I was always an entrepreneur. I was always pushing. I wanted to learn all this. And at that time, I was mixing cement with guys that graduated from Harvard, and there were no jobs, and the economy was shit. I forgot. I just lost my train of thought. Oh, mescaline. So we used to be tripping and meet up in chemistry, and it was the greatest class to meet up in because this dude was like 6'9", like unbelievable guy, and I won't mention any names just because I need to get my ass suit. But it was one of those schools where it was like I remember this one kid right sitting in class and it was like the teacher was like, I want you to go through that door. And go to the principal's office, right? Go through that door. And it was like, you want me to go through that? And it wasn't me, right? It was somebody else. It was like, you want me to go through that door? Like, yeah, you go through that door. He dove through the glass door. This is the high school that I went to. We used to have this circle, right? And it was a circle, like a circle park. And in the middle of the circle was this concrete thing that looked like a big pill. And it was painted Roarer 714. And so it was like, the drug of choice in our school was Quaaludes at the time. So it was like, it was a very interesting upbringing. It was a very interesting town that we grew up in. And I'm really glad I grew up in it because, we used to call the place Mayberry, right? Because it was such a slow town, but it was right on the cliffs overlooking New York City, right? So it was like the cliffs, the Hudson River, and New York City. And I grew up between George Washington Bridge and the Lincoln Tunnel on the cliffs. So we used to use the cliffs as like a roaming experience. We used to use the train tracks below as like, this crazy way of getting high and moving around and having fun and partying all this reckless shit that you can't do now. You'd be in prison. You'd be in prison. I think about the shit that I did when I was a kid, and I was like, I'd still be in jail, right? And that was when I was 17, and I'm 58 now. I'd still be in prison. And we laugh about some of this stuff, and some of the things that we did were just completely reckless. And I attribute that to the drugs that we were doing at the time. It's it.
Did you get into psychedelics post that experience?
Yeah. So it was like, we'd go to high school. We always wanted to be high. We just always wanted to be high. And a lot of us were running from pain that we had from, just our family members or traumas or whatever. And it was the 80s. So it was like there's drugs everywhere. And it wasn't that it was acceptable. It was just the time period where I think, just that time period was crazy because it was pre-internet. Right? So everything was about experiences. We didn't know at the time it was about experiences. We look back now and it was like, you got to do whatever the fuck it was that you want. Nobody was tracking you on your phone, right? You came home when it was dark, and it was just a different world. And I believe that was my foundation to understand life now. Because I was able to do so many things as a kid and move past so much shit. Like we did crazy stuff. I was involved in wrestling, right? We had one of the only schools that had a heater in the wrestling room. So we'd be sweating our asses off, right? We'd be stuck to the door trying to suck the cold air in. Or if we left, right? We had crazy coaches to where like you had to come back with either blood or puke on you, or else you got to get a beating. And it was a wrestling beating. And there's a lot of pain involved in that shit, man. But it was the greatest way to be raised. It was because they were showing us and preparing us for life and what life really had to offer. Because life is going to be hard. Whether you want to participate or not, life's coming for you. And I encourage people, like, listen to your stories that you've been through and the experiences. and sit on them, because life is always going to change. That's the one thing that's constant. So you could go from one of the worst extremes in the world to be a CEO if you want. You can go from being in the streets to running corporations if you want, as long as you take yourself serious. And for the longest time, I didn't take any of this shit serious. I always knew that life was like a little bit of a joke. You look at people and you think they got their shit together, and nah, man, they really don't. It doesn't matter what position they hold in society. There's this meme, this picture that goes around every Thanksgiving, and it's like this lady from like the 50s, and she's holding a plate of turkey, right? She's like, I just laced this shit with LSD, and we're really going to find out who's got their shit together on Thanksgiving. Like that kind of.
I have never seen
It's one of the greatest ones I've ever seen. It's one of the greatest ones ever. And I come from a very unique family. My mom was sick for like 16 years when I was a kid. So I used to watch her constantly get up and have to go through all of this shit just to wake up. My father was a Marine. He was a flamethrower in the Marines. So his job when he was 17 was to burn down villages. That's literally what his job was. So I grew up with these two amazing individuals that pushed us. They did the best they could as parents, because parenting back then was like, fuck, there's the house, there's the key. Come back whenever it's dark. And we used to roam the streets. We'd be going for city runs when we were in high school to get whatever drug of choice we wanted in the middle of school. I never took school serious, ever.
So now, you mentioned epiphanies with psychedelics. So what were some of the epiphanies you experienced?
The first time I did DMT was in Mexico. And there's got to be a little bit of a backstory first, right? So I had met this guy. We introduced Indian food into the Yucatan. We had a place called Namaste Grill. And I was sitting in a courtyard one day, and I'm on my computer, and this guy walks in, and he goes, I heard a fucking Goomba owns this joint. And without even like looking up from the computer, I was like, who the fuck wants to know? And long story short, he ended up being like a Templar, and lineage of like crazy lineage in his family. And he took me under his wing for a little bit of time. And he started showing me things and explaining to me about certain things that were on the internet and what to look for. And I've always been interested in ancient cultures and civilizations and that kind of mindset, right? Because I believe that there's more below the water lines around the world than there is above. And I was always chasing that. Like, I used to cut school and go to the library to read shit that I wanted to be actually thought about instead of the bullshit they were teaching in school. And what I realized through this experience with this guy is that he told me, he's like, listen, man, this shit's going to freak you out. And the only thing that's going to ever bring you back to reality or sanity is DMT. And he would always push me like, oh, one day I'll give you DMT and I'll show you and all. And one day. So I went back to the United States to do something with my father. He was in Gainesville at some hospital. And I passed through Atlanta. And a buddy of mine, for some reason, he's like, hey, man, have you ever heard of DMT? And I was like, yes. Yes. He's like, well, I have this DMT. And he gave me a mint tin full of DMT. Okay. And it took me 2.5 years to go through all of it. Right. And when he did that, he also gave me a tin of the MAOI inhibitor. So you can make both and create ayahuasca. And I went on this journey to find me. And I was writing my book, and I had all of these, like I have 3x5 cards everywhere, when I'm in a project. I have like, on my walls now, 2x3 poster boards, all ideas and shit that I'm just scribbling out. And I had most of the book done, and I had this one chapter where I was molested as a kid, and I couldn't get past that. I just couldn't fucking get past that. I used to speak at convention centers, and I'd come off and get all of these accolades and still think I was a piece of shit because I didn't deal with the emotional insecurities and all of these things. So my wife and daughter went somewhere, and I was like, you know what? I have this DMT I want to try, because I was like fucking putting in weed and nothing would happen, like that kind of shit, but nothing crazy. So one day I took it seriously. I went online, I looked at YouTube videos, and I saw this one kid about how he does it with a 2-liter Coke bottle and tin foil and all of this shit. So they were gone, and I was like, hey, you know what? Let me let me try this, right? And I say try this because, I listen to people like, oh, I'm going to try DMT. And as a psychonaut, I understand you ain't trying shit. It's going to try you, right? It's going to try you, and it's going to push you past whatever mental boundaries you think you have. And set up a recording, right? Like camera. And I'm like, all right, let me try this shit. Well, the first hit, right? Yeah, smoke. My body just started to vibrate. They call it the spirit molecule for a reason. So it was like every molecule in my body would just start going vibrate. And it was the second pull where you ever see on like a really hot day on a summer, you see like the road kind of like there's something on top of the road that's like wavy, right? When you see it during the summer, that's what the wall started to do. And then you start hearing, because you're cracking the fabric of time and space. And when you're ready to just drop off, that's when you got to take third, because that's going to put you in the chair, and that is going to push you. And they call it crossing over. And what happened was I crossed over, and I'm standing there, and I'm looking down. I'm all pixelated, and I have all of these white balls of energy going through me, right? And I'm standing there. I'm like, what the fuck is this? I've never experienced this. And as they're going through, all I hear is, we've been waiting for you. We're going to show you this, and we're going to show you that. And I'm like, what the fuck? This is too beautiful. This is impossible. And it was the most loving experience I've ever had in my life. Goes past it's a mental experience that I was always chasing my whole life, and it was given to me. And it was a point where I started my journey. I started this quest to understand who I was better than who I was the day before or 10 minutes ago. And it made me start to realize that we all have a past. And as Joe Dispenza had said, humans have 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day, and 90% of those thoughts are the same thoughts as the day before. So we're literally living in the past. And that was a different understanding for me after the DMT experience, because it was like, all right, we all have a past. I get it. We're mostly living in the past because our reticular activating system wants to just please us, right? So we're comfortable in the bullshit that we have in our life, and we sit in that comfortable position because we don't want to challenge ourselves. And I'm here to challenge every fucking person that listens to my voice. I challenge you people, you humans, to understand who you are. We all have greatness within. I want everybody to tap into the greatness. I don't give a fuck what done in your past. We all have this ability to change, because change is always constant. That's the only thing in this world that's constant is change. So I have people like that I've talked to, and they're like, oh, you've changed since high school. Like, high school was 40 fucking years ago. If you haven't changed, what is your problem? What do you go? Like, actually say that. Like, oh, you've changed since high school. I was like, I was a fucking degenerate when I was in high school. All I wanted to do was make money and get high. That was high school. That was it. And we're humans. We are, and this is just me, right? This is what I figured out for myself. We're light seeking a human experience, not humans seeking enlightenment. We've already are enlightened beings come to experience this shit show, because this is one of those places where, like, you think about it, all the shit that's going on in this world right now. It's the reason why the aliens are fucking flying by. They want nothing, and they lock their doors, man. They want nothing to do with us. They really don't. And we are alien. We're the only species on this planet that pays to live here, right? And we're the only species on this planet that's uncomfortable in our own environment. You don't see birds making a nest and going, oh, you know what? This fucker's got to be 3 stories, and I need to have like certain little things for my kids. No, they just build their rack, man, and that's it. They raise their kids there. But we're so uncomfortable in the way that we have to like view this environment we call life. And I believe like we're like, to understand a human experience from my point, okay? From my point, I lived in what people call paradise. Okay. I lived in Hawaii. And people think it's like, oh, it's magical. It's this, it's that. Yes, it is. It's that. However, right, I showed up. This was the heaviest I ever was, 315 pounds. I was so fucking miserable in paradise because I didn't have paradise here. And I encourage people to become their own paradise. Experience life. Push yourself past your boundaries. Learn something new. Get uncomfortable. Get radically uncomfortable with yourself. And I tell people all the time, I wish you just enough pain, suffering, and misery for you to change. And this is something that I will keep swinging for the fences until I'm dead, till I'm no longer here. Right? During this whole journey, I was mentored by Les Brown, like one of the best motivational speakers and storytellers and orators of our time. And he was telling me, Craig, all you have to, and this was while I was going through surgeries, he's like, Craig, all you have to do is stay ahead of the chalk outline. And I thought that was the greatest shit in the world. Because it's like, if you're ahead of the chalk outline, you aren't dead yet, right? The body hasn't been moved. So you have to move yourself out of whatever bullshit story that you have in your head. You have to move past your circumstances. You have to move past those stories that are holding you back and get emotionally equipped with yourself. You're a fucking superhuman. You're here for a reason. And we're not just here to like go to work, pay bills, and die. Not what it's about. It really isn't. Really, for the longest time, like I used to be called prophet because when you were talking to me, you gained something. Okay. And we had a show called The Sheeple's Court. It was on X Radio in Las Vegas. And we became very popular talking about shit that nobody wanted to talk about. Well, what comes with that, right, is a lot of bullshit because people want to shut you down, especially when you acquire an audience. And I remember as we were doing this, like you'd hear the static. I'd be disconnected. I was living in Mexico. And you would hear the static, you would hear all of this bullshit as we were talking. Because we were talking about uncomfortable situations. We were talking about the Vatican. We were talking about child molestation and pedophilia and banking and all this shit that nobody wants to talk about. We want to talk about all the corrupt parts of whatever it is going on in this world. We used to talk about that shit in 2010. So we became very unpopular to some people because we were gaining an audience. I want people to get unpopular and uncontrolled with themselves so that you can acquire your own audience, which is you. Which is you. I don't give a shit about the external world. I don't care what you think about me. I don't care about my next door neighbor, what they think about me, because it's none of my business. What somebody says about you, it's none of your business. It's the shit that they're talking about based off of their experience and their relevancy and all of this other shit. So it's like, examine your relationships, examine yourself, and have a better relationship with yourself. That's what psychedelics helped me do. But that's just me, right? I took that time. I put the energy into me. And now I'm just an unstoppable force of resiliency. I can bounce back from anything. Always have, always will. And I want people to do that. Get rid of shut the fucking TV off. Read books. I was on another podcast and we were talking about reading. And it's like, what do you suggest you read? Something that you're interested in so you retain it. We have to have a vested interest in the things that we do. Why are you going to read some shit you're not interested in? You're not going to retain it. Get something that you can put a bite into. And most people don't bite their life. Most people just they'll gum it. It's like, you know what? Let me test the waters. It's your life. What are you testing? What are you testing? People are afraid to fail. Fuck. I designed a life off of failures. That's my superpower. Everything that I do it 150%, 1,000 miles an hour. Why? Because I'm still fucking breathing. I shouldn't be breathing. I should have stopped breathing a long time ago. Now I'm breathing. Now I'm here to disturb the comfortable and comfort the disturbed. And I'm here to bring some people an understanding of themselves. Look in the mirror. That's your competition. Don't ever compare yourself to anybody other than who you were 10 minutes ago. That's it. I think that's the secret to life. Experience your life, fail as fast as you can so you can learn. I used to fuck business up just to see how it would fail. People used to be like, what are you doing, man? That's you're losing so much fucking money. Be like, am I, or am I gaining knowledge that, that one day when I create this corporation that I know won't fail? Because I've learned through my failures. I celebrate successes as well. And I encourage people to do that. Celebrate those small incremental wins. When you're going from this point here to this point here, in the middle, that's the process. That's who you're becoming. So don't just stand on that. Don't just stand on that end result, because that end result's going to make you miserable. That's why people, like kids nowadays, the ones that are becoming multi-millionaires before they're like 14, 15 years old, because you're online, you can become a fucking billionaire in 6 months, right? That's what everybody preaches. What happens is they get to that end result of being rich monetarily, and they're fucking miserable. They're suicidal, they're depressed, they're anxious. Why? Because they don't have wisdom with themselves. It's a slow process to wealth and abundance. Gratitude is something you need to wake up every day with. The longest time I woke up, I'd be fucking pissed. I would be like, why did I wake up? I'm in this pain. I'm in this self-imposed fucking misery. I don't want to be here anymore. I would commit suicide because I know that if I did that, I'd have to come back in this shit show, right? And come back to this volcanic meatball and start this shit all over again with all of these lessons. I've been through enough lessons. They say they say time will tell. You know what? I tell time what to do. That's something that I'm completely aware of, is me. I just went off on so many different tangents.
I want to go way back. You mentioned you were skipping class and going to the library to read and learn about what they weren't teaching you.
Yep.
I'm intrigued what these books were about that you were reading.
It was all about ancient ruins, ancient cultures, biographies. I love biographies. I love people's stories. I love understanding what they've been through. For me, that's like something that I could learn from. Because in school they were just teaching bullshit. It's like what they teach now. I mean, what I was learning back then, I was 16 years old. My job at that point, and so the library was here. My job was like 2 doors down. There was a fire department in the middle, and then it was an apartment building, and then like my job. My job at 16 years old was melting lead pigs for a Heidelberg press, for a printing shop. And my boss was this scruffy Sicilian dude. And I used to ask him all the time, and jokingly, and I'd ask him and be like, hey, man, isn't there any child labor laws against this shit? And he's like, yeah, child labor laws, get the fuck out. I'll get somebody else that wants to do the job instead of you bitching about it. I love Joe. I love Joe so much, man. He was the coolest guy in the world. It was that time period where it was like, we weren't wearing fucking helmets. Take the hit, run into the wall. That's how you learn. Nowadays, can't do that anymore.
That's true.
So it was always just ancient cultures, civilizations. When I was a kid, I was an altar boy. I learned so much about the Catholic Church. It fascinated me because it was like you're in this energy. Long story short, that energy was never the true energy. It was all shit. I mean, look at the church now. And I'm not a religious person at any stretch, but I do believe in something bigger than me. You fucking kidding me? Look at me. I'm a knucklehead from Jersey.
Okay. So I want to transition topics a little bit and get into your book. Everybody Pays a Vig. I loved that, by the way. And don't forget, you could win a signed copy of Craig's book by sharing this episode on social media. Also, full of quotes, all these different things that the way you phrase stuff, on point. But I'm wondering if you can explain what the VIG means to you and how it became a metaphor for your life.
So a VIG is a street tax, right? So it's based off of vigorish. And whether you win or lose when it comes to a bookie, you have to pay something, right? So that's the VIG. For me, it's like the VIG is, what are you paying in your life? Like the VIG that I paid for being a 9/11 volunteer is my daughter has been watching me sick she's 18, for 10 years of her life. She's just seen me sick. So that was the VIG that I paid her, watching me be sick for something that I did 20 something years ago. The VIG for me was, I was an earner. I was a 7-figure earner, high 6 figures. I couldn't even pay the fucking light bill because I was in bed for months at a time. Right. So that was the VIG that I was paying. And it breaks my heart because I believe my family was gypped out of a different life. That's why sometimes I wish I was gone a long time ago so they'd be able to move forward. That was the VIG I paid mentally. And it's one of those things. A VIG is like, so if you're pushing your business, you're constantly in your business 16, 17 hours a day, and you have a family. Well, what's the VIG? You're not going to spend time with your family. I was watching Sly on Netflix just last night. And he was saying, biggest superstar around the world. And he's got a VIG that he paid. It was not being with his family. And he explains it. How it was like, I did so many things away from my family. I didn't watch my kids grow up. I was on a set all the time. We all pay this VIG, So what I do is I encourage people to pay the VIG to themselves, because in gambling terms, the house always wins. So you have to become the house. You have to sit in your temple. You have to develop the skills that you always win or learn. We don't lose anymore. Just, it's not happening. I don't lose. I either win or I learn. That's it. That's the mindset that I've developed for myself. So I put the VIG into myself. I created the house that never loses. And I encourage people to do that. You have to take the time, shut the fucking TV off. Stop talking about people. Talk about ideas, talk about businesses, talk about moving forward. Become enlightened as a human being, enlightened to your circumstances, because we're already light seeking the human experience. So the enlightenment part, becoming enlightened, it's bullshit. Light that beacon up for yourself, man. Get that heart and brain coherence and understand that once you do that, that's the spark of life. That's when you become unstoppable. You have to go through all the embarrassing shit, the pain, suffering, misery, self-loathing, all of those things in your world to become this beacon of hope for yourself. And what happens is you create this energy field that's like 3 meters around you. When you bump into somebody else that has the same energy field, guess what? That's 6 meters. And the next person, right, is another 3 meters. So you're continually multiplying this beautiful light. Why be in a group that sucks? Walk away, man. And sometimes that's your family. Sometimes that's your friends that you have to walk away from. You have to cut them out like cancer. Because I was very fortunate when it came to cancer. I didn't have to go through chemo, none of that shit. They just cut it out and left me in pain and misery for 6 fucking years. The things that they don't tell you, you have to find out for yourself. And you have to sit.
Okay.
Did I answer that properly, or did I just go off on another tangent?
There's not a proper way to answer questions. You can answer them however you feel inclined and inspired to do so.
Okay, man.
I like all of that, though. Have you found anything to help you be able to cut out people or things or places that you should?
I've learned to be able to stand up for myself again. I've had people do some really strange shit to me while I was battling illnesses and disease. Like walk out of my life because I wasn't fun anymore, or walk out of my life because I couldn't help them more. And that's something, that was hard. When you believe somebody has your back and they don't, and it's somebody that's in your life consistently all the time, and you turn around and you look back and you're like, I don't like that fucking person standing behind me. I had to develop this thing for myself where I wasn't self-loathing anymore. I'm still a work in progress. And that's why I encourage people, anybody that you think about, whoever it is, they do not have their shit together 100%. So stop putting people on a pedestal, right? Because that's one of the worst things you could do is put somebody on a pedestal, because what's going to happen? They're going to fall off. And you might push them off. Might get the balls for yourself to be like, hey, you know what? I'm done. Fuck them. Push them. And this is like, mindset and developing this motivational spirit and all this shit. And you're telling somebody to push them off the pedestal? Absolutely. Sometimes you got to step over the bodies in life. Use them as a stepping stone. Use them as a foundation. And it's like, this is so uninspiring and unmotivating. And it's like, you know what? Not for everybody, man. I'm not.
Fucking preach, Craig. I say that a lot. I don't know if you've heard that, but I've said that on multiple of my podcasts. I'm not for everybody. Take it or leave it. And that's okay too.
Yeah.
You like what I have to say? Great. If you don't, that's okay.
Yeah, jump on that. I don't give a fuck bus. Just keep going. Personal development is personal, right? So you listen to all of these people talk about you have to do this, you have to do that, you got to do whatever the fuck fits you, right? Take those modules. Get rid of the shit that holds you back. Just get rid of it. It's like, it's so hard. It's my cousin, or it's my brother, or they don't give a fuck. If they're coming to you with bullshit, they don't care. They don't. I don't care if it's your husband. I don't care if it's your wife. I don't care if it's your fucking kids. People are like, you have to respect your elders. What happens if your elders are assholes? Right? And it comes down to you, your personal development story, your journey, your quest. It's like, what kind of mental shit has somebody been doing that you're still continually sitting in? It's like, no, man. You don't have to. Like, again, comes back to, you don't know my story. I know everybody's story. Because they're all fucking stories. All this shit telling us why we're doing this, why we're doing that. And it's like, I'm not, and no disrespect to people that have jobs at Walmart or whatever, right? Somebody's hustling, somebody's working, somebody's doing their thing. I get it. I'm not taking fucking business advice from somebody that's a cashier at Walmart. I'm sorry. I'm just not. I just won't. So stop fucking listening to people that are drowning. Doesn't work. I've had plenty of, I've mentored thousands, okay? And I look at some of the people that I've mentored, and they're fucking superstars. I've been mentored by the best in the world at what they do. And I'm considered one of the best in the world at what I do. You are considered one of the best in the world at what you do. People are like, that's arrogant. No, listen to what I'm saying. I'm the best at what I do. Not what you do, not what the next person does, right? So I have to accept me for who I am. And most people, they will not accept themselves. They don't want to learn who they are, right? They're just going to go with the flow. Fuck, dead wood goes with the flow, right? It goes downstream. You want to hop on that train, man, by all means. I want to be the dam. I want to be where the water stops, and I control the ebb and flow of my life. And this is the reason why I encourage people. Snap out of your shit, man. Snap out of it. Become godly. That is so egotistical. No, you have the God within. Tap into that source, right? That makes your blood pump. That gives you your breath. You don't do it on your own. I don't see you concentrating on your breathing. 95% of what we do every day is subconscious behavior, so it's automated. 5% is conscious thought. So we're not that fucking bright. We go back to the ancient way of thinking because there's a power within us that when you tap into, man, boom, that's when the light goes on. That's when you become that beacon. It's not for everybody because life is hard. And people rather just sit in their self-imposed misery and just keep taking the shot. It's not about taking the shots, it's taking the shots and standing up. Again and again and again, because like I said before, life is coming for you whether you want to participate or not. That's it. That's my story that I stick to. That's what I live by. That's when I encourage people to become themselves. Everybody else is fucking taken. Everybody else wants to be somebody else that they're not. I refuse to talk about the shit that I don't know anything about. I used to do that all the time. I want to talk about this. I want to be known for that. What if you're known for being an asshole? Embrace it. Be the best asshole you can be. No, we all want this different world, but nobody wants to put the work into becoming that person. Like what I encourage people to do, if you want to be a multimillionaire, most people, it's so fucked up. They're like, oh, I want to be a multimillionaire. Do you really have what it takes? Seriously. Honestly, like look in the mirror. What can you honestly put up with? Because they say more money, more problems. No, that's not necessarily true. Just enhanced problems. Just bigger problems. Still the same problems, just enhanced. Why? Because now you got the fucking leeches coming. When it comes to money, shit. I used to give money to people just so they'd go away. Because you knew they weren't going to pay you back and they weren't coming back. Here you go, bye. I got off easy with that one. People get very strange when it comes to money. You know, I listen to people all the time. Oh, I'm going to leave this to my kids. Fuck, why not just spend it on them now? While you're alive? Like, what kind of fucking what kind of caveman thought process is that? We come in naked, we go out naked. That's it. Everything in the middle is a gamble. It's a vig that we have to pay. Pay the vig to yourself. I don't want to be 80 years old on my deathbed. Nobody's there. That's what I was telling Les Brown. He's like, well, what are you looking to do? I said, well, and at that time, man, I'm very serious. At that time, I was okay to just die. I was just, and it was 2020. So I was in the process. I was in the process of all of these surgeries, all of these fucking drugs, all of these just pain, misery, suffering, self-loathing, all of these shit. He's like, well, what do you want to do? I said, well, I want 1 million people to be at my funeral. And he's like, why? He's like, so I would already have influenced tens of millions of people around the world if 1 million people were at my funeral. And he was like, nah, man, you got that shit. He didn't say that. He's like, nah, you got that wrong. And he never curses, which is what I love about him. He expresses himself in a different way, right? And he's like, nah, man, you got to do that to tens of millions now while you're still alive, while you're breathing. And that's when he said, you got to keep ahead of that chalk outline, right? You got to keep pushing and pushing and pushing. 100%. It's how I always believed. It's just that during this illness from 2012 upward, I was just kicking my own ass, man. I used to tell my wife all the time, I don't understand why I'm in so much fucking pain all the time. I can't get out of bed. I can't move. They were telling me I had pneumonia and pleurisy. Every time, pneumonia, pleurisy, pneumonia, pleurisy, pneumonia. And it wasn't until 2017, there was an eclipse, and we went to Helen, Georgia, my wife and my daughter, and we were walking up. So I had to stop. I just started sweating profusely. I had this heart pump. I could feel it in my chest, ready to pop out of my chest. And I was like, I can't even, and I'm an avid hiker, walker, and I couldn't walk up a hill. And I went down in the car and I stayed there. I started profusely sweat, body chills, all of this shit. And then we go to the ER, and that's when the doctor told me in front of my 11-year-old daughter that I had malignant cancer. I wanted to throat punch. And then I started to understand the medical industry through all the shit that I was going through. And not a lot of people should be in the medical industry that are in the medical industry because they just don't know how to speak. Because everything, and I understand, my wife's an RN now, and I understand why it has to be cold. Why when somebody's talking to you in the medical industry, it's very technical. Because if you put emotions into it, you'll collapse. There's too much shit that goes on when you're dealing with people that are sick all the time. And I get that. I understand that now. I really do. I understand that you have to meet people where they're at. Whatever you're doing, you meet them where they're at, not where you're at, because you're going to make yourself look stupid. I've done it many times. I've always wanted to bring people to where I'm at, and they're not there. They're not there. And it's not that you're talking down to people. It's like, no, man, have you spent tens of thousands of hours in your fucking living room to overcome all the shit that you've been through? The average person would be like, nah, I watch TV for tens of thousands of hours. Shut that shit off. Sit inside yourself, in your temple. But I don't know how to meditate. I can't meditate. I keep thinking. That's what you're supposed to do. Meditation is to learn how to think for yourself. Get all the shit that you're thinking about. As you keep thinking about it, it's eventually going to go away. And now you put in new thoughts, new ideas. Get rid of the convoluted stinking thinking. And I say we, but we as a general public, we're confused about human behavior. That we think that from 0 to 25, you got to be sitting in a fucking classroom and studying this and studying that. I know so many people with college educations that aren't even doing shit they went to school for. And it was all because mommy and daddy wanted them to go to college to get a better education. But you can give somebody $1,000, tell them to open up a business, open up a small business and fail it. Fail it fast, and you'll learn so much more. Or go traveling. You'll learn so much traveling, going to different cultures. Human, it's nature that embraces, different things. Humans don't. Humans don't. Anything different when it comes to humans, oh, shit. I got to back away from that person because they're a different color or they think different or a different religion or what. Man, the nuns beat religion out of me when I was a kid. I used to go to catechism. They used to smack me with the fucking ruler, with that metal pin, with that metal line through it. That shit hurt. Like, Jesus Christ, whack. What the fuck? Whack. Aren't you supposed to be like peace, love, and happiness? Why are you such an oppressed little penguin? What the fuck?
Okay. So I want to get back into the topic of your book, but I want to go back to your book.
But I'm also an NLP expert, right? So all that shit before was just gone.
No, it's not gone. It's not gone. Nothing is gone. I want to go back to the topic of your book.
Go back to the original question that you asked me? Okay.
I don't even know if I remember what it was at this rate, but it's okay. We're going to go back to the topic of your book. And you wrote a lot of stuff in there, and there were a lot of quotes that really resonated with me. And I wrote one of them down, and I want you to elaborate on this. But you said it was an enlightening lesson about not judging people and situations based on what I saw. It taught me to question the witness and not rely on my own senses to tell me what's going on. And I love that. Can you elaborate on that?
So we judge people based off of our moral compass, our ethical compass, or not everybody's the same. Not everybody has the same experiences, right? So who are we to judge anybody? Seriously, I mean, when it comes down to life itself, like, why am I judging you because you sin different? Doesn't make any sense.
We lost connection, but Craig was talking about judgment, and he's going to pick up where he left off.
So it's like, how are we judging people, right? And we really don't know how to judge ourselves. Right? Because we do all of these things, whatever it is in this world. I'm not here to judge anybody. I cannot fucking judge anybody on what they do. I can't. Because I realized that how can I judge somebody when I don't have their experience? I'm not in their head. I don't know what they're thinking about, right? So they're making choices based off of what they are doing or thinking at the time. We make shitty choices as people. Sometimes we believe that we're doing something for the right reasons, and they're the wrong reasons. We're only going to find out later on. That's why hindsight is 20/20, right? There's been many, many times in my life where I couldn't believe the choices that I made at the time because I might have been under the influence of something stupid. I could have believed something different than the information that was actually real. So what's the truth? Truth is, I realize that I cannot judge somebody. Like even the shit that I'm going through now. I want people to just be happy. I really do. I don't have enemies. I don't. I refuse to participate in that shit. Things are always going to hurt me. I'm a feeling human, and I believe that we have to be in touch with our emotions. We have to sit and think about the things that we've done, that have been done to us, and then I realized from my own experience that had nothing to do with whatever choices other people were making. I might have been a catalyst at that point, but however people were thinking, it's not on me. And I used to take things personal all the time. Oh, I can't believe so-and-so did that to me. Oh, you whiny little bitch. Stand up. It's like it had nothing to do with you. Really did it. And I think that's one of the things that, for me, is become my superpower. Because I'm not judging anybody, and I'm not judging myself. There's only one judge, the way I look at things, and we're going to be judged one day. That's it, man. You got to live with there's actions and there's consequences. So why not create the world that's, and it sounds hippie-ish, but it's like peace, love, and happiness. I know what misery is, self-imposed misery, hatred. I get all that stuff. I've been through all of that stuff. I'm 58 years old. I see my daughter watches me everything that I do. Everything that I do. I just want to be a better person than who I was, 10 minutes ago. We're all going to make mistakes. Can you live with your mistakes? Can you live in that mindset that you made a mistake? Are you going to apologize to somebody? One of the worst things that somebody can actually do is be accountable for something. So how the fuck can I judge anybody when I can't even judge myself? It comes down to knowing thyself. I tell people all the time, take that time, man. Take that time to understand who you are. And if you're sitting there watching TV, 8 hours a day, man, you could be learning so much other shit. I had a group. It was the 2920 Club. This was back in the day when I was mentoring kids while I was battling the shit that I was going through. And I want to say it right. So you have 8 hours, 8 hours of sleep, 8 hours of work, and then you have another 8 hours. And if you add those up, it comes down to 2,920 hours a year. So it was the 2920 Club. Well, you know what you can get done in 2,920 hours? Right now, science says that if you are involved in something 19 minutes a day consistently for a year, okay? So it's 19 minutes a day consistently for a year, you're going to be the top 1% in that genre in the world.
Wow.
In the world. So most people spend 19 minutes on bullshit. So you're going to be the top 1% of bullshit in the world. I don't want that for myself. I don't want that for the people that I'm involved with. I'm not feeding into those conversations. And it's not like look at me, I've overcome. No, I'll continue to keep pushing. I've learned mastery. And mastery means that I just learned the basics. I've mastered the basics. People are like, oh, I've done this and I've done that. That's great. What are you continuing to do? I don't want to keep living in the past and be like, oh, you know what? I used to speak on stages and I look back and I was like, that was fucking 15 years ago. What have you done since? Now I speak on virtual stages all over the world. All over the world. Now I want to speak on real stages again because my physical health, I'm starting to feel much better. Go to the gym 2 hours a day. I was walking 5 to 7 miles a day and I stopped because I started hitting the weights. So I'm developing something different for myself at 58 years old. My goal at 60 is to be in the best shape of my life with my tats. That's my goal.
With your tats. Okay.
I want to sleeve. I want to sleep like at 60 years. I got a friend, his name is Craig Sotkovsky. He did one of these things. He did one of these things at his 60th birthday. And he's like, this is what 60 looks like. And I was like, God damn. He's got 2 sleeves, muscles, and he's a keto expert. And it's like, yeah, man. Yeah, at 60 years old.
So are you going to get your first tattoo at 60?
No, I want to have it done before that.
Before then? Okay, so you got 2 years. So when are you getting it?
I don't know. It'll happen when it happens.
Okay.
It'll happen when it happens. You judging me, you fucker. I can see that. Mm-hmm.
Who said I'm judging? Because we were talking off air and he had complimented mine, but he's afraid of needles. So that is why I am holding him accountable. It is not judgment. I will remind you. When's your birthday? I'll remind you before you turn 60. I'll hit you up. You think I'm kidding? I'm not kidding. You're going to be like this crazy mindset chick.
Well, I just judge.
A year's going to pass and you're going to be like, oh, this fucking mindset bitch. What the hell does she want now?
Why am I deleting her? It's like, oh, no, Amanda Russo. No. I keep saying that. Sleeve. You know what? Amanda, thank you for commenting. Mr. Sotkovsky will be. Yeah, you get those automated messages.
So, back to your book. You also talked in there about how at one point you were doing a real estate closing and somebody else involved in the closing had canceled because they were having a hard time after being at the towers that day. And you had been there the same experience as well.
Well, okay, so Yes and no, right? So he was actually at the towers when that shit was coming down.
Okay.
Okay, so he was freaked out about that, and rightfully so. Rightfully so. I just wanted to add that.
Okay. Well, he had a similar experience to witnessing it as you did and wasn't able to go through with the closing, but you weren't going to not go through with the closing. How or what has helped you? That's a powerful mindset to have.
We ended up closing. He wasn't there. And I was in the process of moving to Florida at the time, right? So me and my fiance at the time, who's now my wife, was going to be my ex-wife, was actually there, right? And it was like me and my partner was buying me out of one house and we were selling this other house and I needed cash to move to start my other life. And it was like, nah, man, I need to get this shit done. And we ended up closing. And it was funny because I remember the attorney saying something along the lines like, well, he had a really bad experience. And I'm saying to myself, I had a shitty experience as well, yet I'm still here, right? He was debating on whether or not he wanted to close or whether or not, no, it's the power of persuasion. You have to close. If not, I'm not giving you back your deposit. It doesn't say, because of tragedy, we're not closing. No, fuck that. I got to get out of here. So we have to close. I can't hold this up. And it was just one of those mindsets where it was like, I needed to overcome the outside influence, the outside circumstance. And it's like, everything that I look at in life is about power of persuasion. You're either going to do something or you're not, right? We had, at that time, everything was so chaotic. We lived downtown Jersey City. So after that event on 9/11, we knew of people that died. We knew of people that didn't because they were last minute got a coffee somewhere and they ended up talking to somebody and that kind of, like, you heard all of those kinds of stories. It's like why somebody didn't show up for a meeting because their kid needed to do something real quick or whatever. And it's like you heard those stories. So he was part of a story and he was a part of my story of getting over your stinking thinking. It wasn't long. We're talking September 11th. We were moving in October. So it was between September 11th and the beginning of October that this was happening with the closing. Oh, hell no. I wasn't letting anybody. I don't care. Your lawyer could show up and do all the paperwork. That's fine. I'm not just going to allow you to walk away. That was my mindset at the time because I needed to get something done because had I not closed, I couldn't have gone to Florida. I was like, nah, man, we got to move this along. And I really do. I think we feed fear time. And that's one of the worst things that we could do because and I'm just going to use this as an example. You have a contract you have to execute on. You can't have an event stop you from doing something. For the longest time, not to get off on a tangent, which I always do. I had an incident in Hawaii where I needed the money. I did a job for somebody. I needed the money and the guy died. And it was like, how can I go to his widow and be like, I need the money? It took me, I don't know, a month or two or whatever time period. I can't remember. But it was like, he passed away. How can I show up on somebody's doorstep? I needed the money. I was getting screwed if I didn't have the money. But how can I do that to somebody? Would you just show up, knock on a door, and be like, "Oh, I'm here for the after party"? And did he leave a check the day before? You have to have empathy for people. And I think people are more apathetic than empathetic.
What's the difference?
You can tell me a story, and I can have empathy for it because I've been through a lot of things in my life. Or you could tell me a story, and I can just say, "Yeah, fuck it. It's just something that she's gone through." So I don't have any empathy for you. And I think we're in this time period where everybody has these digital devices. So everything is instantaneous. People think they're entitled to shit now. I could say something about Amanda because it's over the internet, and what's she going to do? She's just going to shut it off and delete it. Or I could be like, you know what? I really understand that, and she's going to blow it up. Like, I resonate, blow it up. Who do you resonate with? There's arrogant people in everybody's lives, but do you allow it to sit there? I don't anymore. I did. And the thing with sickness and illness and all of this stuff is you beat yourself down mentally so much to where you stop believing in yourself and you lose connection. And again, not to be funny or everything, and I think this is where psychedelics makes a huge play in people's lives, because it gives you the ability to reconnect with yourself. And that's something that, I had a buddy of mine, he wanted to do DMT, and he thought it was like, but he's a control freak. And I was like, listen, man, this is guarantee you one thing. This is something you've never encountered before. I can take it. Well, you know what? He couldn't take it. And I had to babysit him as he was going through this experience of not being in control. And the thing is, we cannot control all of this outside stuff. The only thing we can control is the inside stuff. And, it's all about your childhood. It's all about the people and influences in your life. It's all about the stories that we tell ourselves of why we can't do certain things. And the reason why I'm telling you and your audience is because I sat there. I understand this. I understand what it's like to, I can't do that, or I can't do that. You know what? You keep saying I can't, and you're right. You won't be able to. You have to be that person now. I am an unstoppable force. I am not to be fucked with. I am a multimillionaire. I am a business owner. You have to be that now. You have to have that mindset right now. And you will succeed. And as long as I heard somewhere along the lines where it's like, every time you have a self-doubt, you have to beat it back with 17 positive affirmations. Think about it. Science shows, and what's one of the best things you could say, science shows, because everybody believes that shit. And I always say trust but verify. You ever read stuff and it's like science has shown, or people are like, in this report, I make reports too. AI makes reports, and you have to understand all these word games, man, because it all is neurological linguistic programming. You could listen to the words and phrases that people use to determine what they're actually saying. Body language, the facial tics and these flitches and all of this shit, the perspiration, tears. When somebody's telling you something and they're explaining something to you passionately, are they using their hands? Because science has shown when you use your hands, people believe you more. I don't know. That's what science has shown. Trust but verify.
Okay. I love how you mentioned being that person now, because that's something that I've discussed with a lot of people about how you need to embody and create this identity even before it is your reality.
Yeah, you have tos, not needs and wants, right? And you'll hear me say need and want, or I slip up, I'm human. We have to and must. That's one of the things that I've learned is when I say I need something or I want something, I don't have it. And I just had this discussion with my sister the other day, and it was hysterical because we were going back and forth saying the exact same thing. And when you have to do something, your ability changes. The way you look at things change. It's not, I need to do this. It's like a second guess. Do I really? Or I must. I must change how I look at something. I must do something in order to change how I believe. They're very powerful statements. So the I am statement is the most powerful. And I've talked to people about manifesting. It's like, I'm manifesting this. It's like, well, how about we look at it this way? And this is just off my experience. How about it's already there and you tap into the quantum field and you change your frequency, that dial, and you bring it to you. That's the manifestation part, right? But you've created something different here in your ability to actually attract things. Those are synchronicities that are going to come into your life once you change the way you think, once you change the way you believe. I tell people all the time, when you have a belief system, there's always a lie in the middle. So I never, ever, ever come to conclusions anymore. Because if you bring me different information, well, I've already concluded something. So if I had a conclusion on something and you're giving me different information, I change that conclusion. So why come to a conclusion in the first place? Just be open to an experience, be open to a thought.
Okay.
And that's the way I guide my life now. It's just me. I can't tell people what to do, how to feel, none of that shit.
I'm curious though. Why don't you come to conclusions anymore?
Because if I come to a conclusion of who Amanda is so and so, and you come and you bring me different information, you've just changed my conclusion. So if I'm just open to the experience of Amanda Russo, Then in a relationship, friendship, business, whatever, we could evolve. So if I come to a conclusion, that's an abrupt stop, no?
So is it just the people in your life that you don't come to conclusions on, or is it everything?
Come to a conclusion anything. Simply because, like, look, you could, and I don't like to reference the news because that's just, that's created shit all on its own. So I don't. Well, let's say I refuse to come to conclusions because I know somebody can always bring me different information. So if I'm rigid in that mindset of stop, how can I change my belief unless somebody gives me different information? And I learned this through banking. Every bank on planet Earth is insolvent because they're all tied to a derivative market. That's huge. It's the umbrella of the whole financial industry. So if that's all fucked up, how can one bank be solvent? It's like, oh, well, we're attached to X, Y, and Z. But the X, Y, and Z is attached to this umbrella, which is bullshit.
Okay.
Does that make sense? And I just use that because I'm passionate about financial scams and financial institutions. That's a different podcast.
So I want to get back into the topic of manifesting that you were touching upon, and in terms of the quantum field. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Okay, so I can explain it this way. I don't mean to be gross. If I took 20 women and I brought them to a location, it's 20 different ethnicities, 20 different religions, doesn't matter. I brought them to a location, one location. In 6 months to a year, and I'm just going to use 6 months to a year, all their menstrual cycles would mesh. They would all get their menstrual cycles at the same time. That's the quantum field. Now, why would they get their menstrual cycles at the same time? Is because we're humans, but we're also nature. So nature would want to make sure that everybody is off at the same time. It's a protection mechanism. It's one of those things where a dog knows to sit in front of the bathroom of their owner because they know at that point in time that that's the most vulnerable they'll be. We're tapping into this quantum field. Unfortunately for us, our quantum field, right, is people, places, and things and shit and just shit buzzing around us. Move it, tap into yourself, and you develop a different frequency, which creates a different vibration, which gives you different energy. And it was Nikola Tesla. You want to understand who humans are or nature? It's energy, frequency, and vibration. That's it. It's pretty simple. That's why if you listen to music, they created different hertz in like the 40s for music and TV and all of that stuff because they understood human behavior back then. They'll do Madison Avenue throws shit at marketing people. Right? And now I have to go to this school because so-and-so says so. I have to buy this thing because then I'm going to look cool. And I have to own a home. And I have to, you can't own a home. You can't. And people are like, oh, but I have the deed. Well, look at the deed. What does it say? You're a tenancy. You're in tenancy. What tenancy are you depending on your marriage and all this other stuff? But you're a tenant. That's why you pay taxes, right? So you can own paperwork that says that you have possession of something. You have the invariable right subject to you paying taxes, insurance, and all that. Transfer the airspace. You don't know shit. I could be in the middle of a city, struck oil. You think you're going to be able to get those oil rights? Maybe years ago in California and shit, but that shit's dead now. So what do you own? This is the only real estate that we can own is our mindset. That's it. So whether or not you're going to participate in developing a relief of your stinking thinking, because we all have the ability to create whatever it is that we want in our world within the reason of us. And people are like, well, you just said you can create whatever you want. Yeah, well, you know what? I can't be a 15-year-old quarterback. So there you go. I have to, within reason of myself. It's like, oh, so you're holding yourself back. No, I never wanted to be a 15-year-old quarterback. Well, who are you? I'm this guy that pisses people off. I'm this guy that pushes people past their boundaries of understanding themselves. Why? Because that's the only time that you're going to fucking develop a new life for yourself is by being pushed past the boundaries, that self-imposed limitations of why you can't do something. You do whatever the fuck it is. You concentrate on that 29-20 club, man. You have 8 hours a day to develop whatever it is that you want. Most people sit on the couch for 8 fucking hours and watch TV. That shit's designed to just suck your mind out. Do I collapse and watch shit? Yeah, all the time. I don't want to think. I talk to so many goddamn people during the day. Sometimes I just don't want to think. I need an escape. We all need to escape something, right? Why not escape into something that you want to learn about? Have a vested interest in what you want to do. Remember, 19 minutes. 19 minutes a day for 12 months, man. You'll be the top 1% of whatever field that you're studying in the world. That means the whole volcanic meatball, the whole thing. You're a top 1%.
Where did you get that analogy from?
Probably tripping. I don't know. Probably tripping one day. I've been saying that shit for a really long time. I don't know. I was probably like looking at a map and I was like, oh, really high. Gosh. It's bubbling. It's a volcanic meatball.
Okay. Craig, you're hilarious. Oh my gosh. This has been so amazing. And I really appreciate you speaking with me on the podcast.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Oh my gosh, of course. And I appreciate your patience with all the tech issues. But I have a question. Have you heard of Jay Shetty?
Yeah, the guy on YouTube, I think, or Instagram. Yeah, I know.
There's a lot of people on YouTube, Craig.
No, I'm saying Jay Shetty. Like I might have seen him on YouTube or something.
Yeah. Okay. So he's got a podcast called On Purpose, and he ends his podcast with 2 different segments. And I've started incorporating his 2 segments into my podcast. So the first segment is called The Many Sides to Us. And now these have to be answered in one word. Number 1. What is one word that someone who is meeting you for the first time would use to describe you as?
Resilient.
Number 2. What is one word someone who knows you extremely well would use to describe you?
I think it would be a phrase more than one word. Batshit crazy. But one word, motivated.
Okay. Number 3. What is one word you'd use to describe yourself?
Unstoppable.
Number 4. What is one word that if someone didn't like you or agree with your mindset would use to describe you as?
Arrogant.
Number 5. What is one word you're trying to embody right now?
Being.
And then the next segment is the final 5, and these can be answered in up to a sentence. Number 1. What is the best piece of advice you've heard or received?
Nobody laughs or cries in a different language.
I like that. Number 2. What is the worst advice you've heard or received?
The worst advice, don't be selfish.
Number 3. What is something that you used to value that you no longer value?
My old way of thinking.
What was your old way of thinking?
My old way of thinking was nothing. I used to pride myself on not having any change. I used to believe that I woke up every day doing the exact same thing over and over again. And that was whatever it was that I wanted to do. And I realized I wasn't learning anything. And I was doing that for years.
Okay. If you could describe what you would want your legacy to be, as if someone was reading it, what would you want it to say?
That I was a person that encouraged other people to just be themselves.
That's beautiful. Number 5. If you could create one law in the world that everyone had to follow, what would it be? And I'm going to want to know why.
Be loving. Love is always the answer. Doesn't matter what the subject is. Love is always the answer.
I agree. So I have one more question for you. What are some resources that you use consistently in your life to help you be successful?
Easy. Anything Joe Dispenza, anything Jose Silva. Listen to encouraging things. Meditate. Prayer. Be positive in a negative world. The positivity is, I think positivity, when you've been through so many things in this world, gratitude and positivity play a huge factor. Like, I'm very positive even when I'm negative. People are like, always, how can you have a smile on your face? All the time. You can go through shit every day and you'll have a smile on your face. I don't have cancer. That's my end result. I don't have cancer. Everything else is, your health is the wealth that you've been looking for. When you're a healthy mind, body, spirit, there's nothing that you can't accomplish. And I tell you, and I tell your audience, I've lived in a self-imposed misery for years. Just that self-loathing of can't get out of your own way. Always just dealing with medical shit. Always dealing with my bill's going to be paid. My medical going to be paid. Am I going bankrupt again? Am I mentally bankrupt? And I did that for such a long time. And it was the environment that I was in. It was the environment that I kept myself in. I don't want that for anybody. I really don't. I know what horrific shit is. And I know other people know horrific shit is. I don't want horrific things for people. I want them just enough pain, misery, and suffering for them to change. That's what my life work is all about. I want to meet people where they're at and help them think different, not think like me. I had somebody one time be, I want to be just like you. I was like, fucking neurotic? Why would you want to be neurotic? Like, what? You need to raise your bar a little bit, My wife used to tell me all the time, your head is like a hotel and all rooms are full. No vacancies.
So that means you're always thinking about something.
Always. Always thinking about improving.
Well, that's great.
Can be, but you could also mislead yourself. Right? Like I said before, mastery is an ongoing conversation within yourself. When you master yourself, it's about, for me, again, it's my experience. When you're mastering yourself, you're going to come into hard times, man. You're going to come into that dark work that you need to do to master yourself. Nobody knows you better than yourself. Nobody knows the skeletons that you have in your closet, right? And this is one thing that I tell people is that nobody knows your story, right? So if you're going to have a new relationship, it's like, don't bring that luggage. Maybe a couple overnight pieces or whatever, but don't bring that whole goddamn trailer. I used to bring that whole, every time I used to go to a different geographical location and move, I would show up. And that pain, misery, self-loathing shit would show up with me. I can't wait to change this place. I ain't changing nothing. That place will change you. The environments that you put yourself in. Think better for yourself. Talk gentler to yourself. And you'll overcome a lot of things. When you're harsh on yourself, things that you've done in the past, the relationships that you were in, it didn't work out or whatever, learn from them and grow. Change from them. That's it. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Well, thank you so much, Craig. I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with me. And where can the listeners connect with you? Are they able to work with you?
Sure. I give everybody 15 minutes. It's craigsotkovsky.com, and see, what I have to offer. There's no Visa or MasterCard hookup or whatever. I do everything by myself. And there's nothing automated. Because I want to get to know whether or not I can work with somebody, whether or not we're a fit. So I go through the whole process.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Mando's Mindset. Don't forget about our giveaway to win one of 2 signed copies of Craig's book, Everybody Pays a Vig. Share this episode on social media and email me at thebreathinggoddess@gmail.com. You have until July 29th to send me an email of that screenshot. And Craig's book really inspired me because it was so authentic. And on the back of his book, it says how Craig shares the raw, unscripted story of how he rose from adversity, abuse, and setbacks to find his life's purpose in helping others through mentorship and financial literacy training. And it really is raw and unscripted. He doesn't leave anything out. So I really think y'all would benefit from reading Craig's book. His book, you can purchase it directly as well. There is a link in the show notes. You can also share this episode, and he is signing 2 copies that we will be giving away. And guys, don't forget, we all laugh and cry in the same language. None of us are different from one another in terms of that. And Craig had a really amazing point when he talked about everybody pays a vig. He gave the example of the man that was never home and didn't see his kids really grow up, but he put food on the table. His wife had a great car, but there is some vig, whatever it is you are having in life, there is something that is going to be at the expense of that. And you can think about that in any aspect, in any relation to something else. So guys, I encourage you to take some time to reflect on what vigs do you want to pay in life? You got one life. I say it all the time. We're here, then we're not. But it's true. Only you individually know what vigs you want to pay in your life. I don't know that. Craig doesn't know that. Even as Craig said, nobody knows you better than you. Well, thank you guys for tuning in to Amanda's Mindset. And thank you so much to Craig for taking the time to speak with me and for his patience, because we dealt with a lot of audio issues. But where there is a will, there is a way, y'all. And this was too powerful and amazing of information for you guys to not hear. As always, if you enjoyed the show, I'd appreciate it if you left me a 5-star rating and left a review. Thanks, guys. Until next time.